Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today webinar, Building Secure Connectivity Network for Critical IoT Verticals. We have today three distinguished members from FreeWave, Velocity, and Flolive, which I will shortly introduce to you. Today, we are going to cover what's happened when connectivity fails, short introduction by me. Then we'll do a very quick and short introduction of the panel who is going to speak today. We present the, we present the speakers and the company that they are coming from, and then we will start a roundtable discussion following with a live Q&A from the audience. So feel free to post your questions, and we'll making sure we will attend to them by the end of the webinar. So what's actually happened when connectivity fails? How does it look like? So basically, it starts like any normal day. You are waking up, checking your dashboard, everything looks okay. And then suddenly 10, 15 minutes later, something just pop up, you get a lot of res on your dashboard, and you start to run and find out what's going on. And surprisingly for you, you can find that everything is working, nothing is happening, everything is connected basically, but nothing is transmitting. So it's not your device, it's not your IoT device. This is actually something in the network. Something is changed. If it's the IP that changed or the routing is changed. And we want to take you in this webinar, on understanding what exactly are these failures, how you can identify it, and how it can be solved. And this is what we will mainly discuss in our roundtable today. So who we have today? We have William from FreeWave. We have Anthony from Velocity IoT and Ernest from Flolive. Let each one of them to introduce himself just before introducing the respective company. So, William, we will start with you. So, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Bill Conley with FreeWave. I've been with FreeWave approximately 10 years. I've been in the IoT space for probably 40, close to 40. I have several US patents in the wireless telemetry markets. FreeWave is probably the de facto telemetry on oil and gas sites. That's where our pedigree is. We're moving into the security space because of the problems that we're seeing out in the field. A lot of our 902 to 928 telemetry, this is Ethernet and serial radios, are connected or backhauled via cellular, and that opens the door for significant problems in the field.
Go ahead, William.
Yeah. So what we're going to kind of discuss today is exactly how end users purchase products. So the way it typically works is since our data is backhauled. What we'll do is that via cellular, the end user will purchase a cell router and quickly realize that they need data with that cell router. So in the past, it doesn't happen as much anymore. In the past, they would go to a typical cell phone, buy a SIM, and then find out that the next problem they're going to end up having is they can't do bidirectional command and control. They can send data outbound, but they can't get data inbound. So that's where they'll go to a carrier or an MVNO, and they'll purchase um, a static IP address. At that point, those are typically public. They're accessible outbound, and unless you have your device completely secure with a username and password or a VPN tunnel, you can easily get hacked into. The carrier is not going to issue IP addresses for the devices that are connected downstream of that cell router. So that then begins uh, the problem of having to port forward everything downstream. So a cell router, when a customer makes a decision on a cell router, the ability to port forward is important to them because of that static IP problem. So a downstream IP scheme becomes a port forwarding IP scheme, and a lot of SCADA systems don't like port forwarded IP addresses. So so the I've had customers where they would call up for support, and then we begin to troubleshoot it. They'll give me the IP address, and then within 5 minutes I can get into their network. At that point they haven't even given me their username and password. They never changed it. They left it as admin or root. Um, the way FreeWave solved this problem is a product that we created called Zentry. It is a zero trust network. The difference between zero trust and something like a VPN is that we are completely dark. You won't even see our IP addresses. So we have the ability to eliminate um, the need for a static IP address from a carrier. The other problem that exists is that when you get a IP address from a carrier and you have to move to another carrier, then it's going to cause you to have to reconfigure your entire SCADA system because that IP address is not transferable from carrier to carrier. So our ES1000 is completely secure with our product called Zentry. The the relationship that we have with Velocity and Flolive is one of the reasons why we selected that SIM is because it's agnostic to any carrier. Uh, we're very keen on ease of use to our customers. So dropping a product like this and have it easily work is very important to us. Because the data sim is agnostic to carriers, we can simply drop it in. We don't need an IP address of any kind. Our zero trust is configurable to create secure connections between all of the IP addresses downstream. And since we don't care who the device is connected to, then we could easily configure an end device to be accessible, and we can isolate ports for the end user to give permissions, as an example, to give permissions for access to the UI but not the data, or access to the data but not the UI. That zero trust product is called Zentry, and it comes complete with the ES1000. So when the ES1000 is deployed, it already comes with a Flolive Velocity SIM with our ES1000. You plug it in, and there's nothing else that you need to do on that end of it.
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, Anthony Protopsaltis, principal and CTO at Velocity IoT. Been in this space, quite many years now, and worked with each of the people you see here in different aspects. Yeah, we started Velocity about 4 years ago with the intent to make connectivity for IoT product much more ubiquitous, easier to identify who and what you need as far as a connectivity partner, uh, and give the ability for customers to focus on their customers' needs and developing their products, much as FreeWave has, right? They have that niche and that market segment that they understand extremely well. And the focus for us was to make their customers and their experience easier as far as development and deployment, um, focusing on the security that they have in place makes it easier. As Bill mentioned, uh, having these products in place, is not it's not a very simple thing. You can't just put something out there and expect that it's going to work as you intended. So what we do as a connectivity enablement partner for FreeWave, we use our expertise, our development, our understanding of the technology implementation, to define a strategy, right? And pre-testing deployment really built for their use case. So where we really fit in is, this accelerator to help our customers design, develop, and push out a connected product as quickly as possible. You do the next slide. Um, so, our focus is the connectivity strategy, right? Based on the use case. So, FreeWave came to us, and when you're looking at product that needs to get deployed in all these different locations, you can't say, okay, I need to develop this for AT&T, I need to develop this for Verizon, I need to develop this for T-Mobile. You have to develop for all three, and not just that. There's all these smaller carriers that are involved in this ecosystem that they all have their individual nuances, and we come in to help support that development on the network in order to make sure that the expectation that you're seeing from point A to point B is exactly what you're expecting to get. Um, the strategy that Velocity uses is basically 90% planning and 10% execution. This helps it. This helps the partners and developers like FreeWave in order to build a product where they feel confident that when they ship it to their customer, it will work. We handle quite a bit from our side. We work with partners like Flolive, who you're going to hear about very shortly, in regards to their network infrastructure. We have our tools that are built into tying into their infrastructure as well that we make available to our customers. And we're very happy with that ecosystem because localized packet gateways and infrastructure are extremely important, especially nowadays when we're talking about security. We're talking about keeping your data within your region, so that way you fill these requirements that a lot of infrastructure partners or infrastructure customers may need or have. So we work with Flolive and other partners, module manufacturers, et cetera, to kind of put together what our customers need in order to release their product.
Thank you, Anthony. Now let's move to Ernest.
Hey y'all. So Ernest Platt, funny enough, I have 18 years of IoT experience. This makes me the rookie, apparently, with the two gentlemen that I currently have on. That's one of the first folks. Just a little bit about my background. Most of the time I've been spending directly with carrier strategy with IoT, working the bulk of my industry knowledge, but I've also had several stints with a couple of MVNOs and SIs in developing products mostly for enterprise customers. Next slide, please. A little bit about our company profile. We have 180 folks worldwide, with 70% of that in R&D. So this is going to be a really product-focused company. What we do is we provide and operate a global cellular infrastructure purpose-built for intelligent IoT operations. This is really a multi-network, multi-server, multi-IMSI, local and global cellular and satellite connectivity to our end customers. As stated, we are an MVNE supporting MVNOs and very large, complex enterprises that are looking for cellular, local, global cellular connectivity throughout their end part. We own our own infrastructure, which is our core network, and we are able to leverage that to be able to look at some very interesting insights directly through our core network, so we can see what's happening on the network problems that may be having, and as well be able to create customized solutions. So if there is ever a problem, we want to make sure that your end customer is always connected, whether it be through another carrier, whether it be through another IMSI, whether it be through another provider. Uh, as stated, we have our own CMP, our own core network. We support satellite, and we are able to do local packet gateways, which we'll get into later on today, which will give you the ability to lower latency, have data sovereignty within countries as you're going global or even local, and as well be able to diversify and your network pathway, which a lot of MVNOs really enjoy. So that way they have a lot more control and management on the network, so they can be able to, as Anthony is very keen on doing, help design products for their end customers that are very, very network reliant and easy to use. So that I'll pass it back on to you, Eyal.
All right, thank you all of you for this introduction. One thing that really catch my ears when listening to you guys is that it looks like you got it all sorted out for the US, right? Like you said that you are supporting all the different carriers, even the small ones, and you got everything in under one roof. But what happened if I have to go international? If I don't know, I need to go to Mexico, Canada, or even to Europe. What's happening there? Anthony, Ernest, let's start with you guys.
Yeah, so there's not much of a difference, right? Flolive has developed this infrastructure that's very well planned out. It has their regional, um, and I'm probably taking what Ernest is going to say, but you
Oh
have your
no.
regional packet gateways and the localized MZs, which uh, what our goal is to make sure that when we're working with our customers and planning for their local deployments, we're also looking at if they choose to expand out, how we plan ahead. So there shouldn't be that much to do for anyone actually going into these other regions, except to make sure that the modules that they're using are certified for the region that they want to deploy in, from our standpoint. Ernest?
Yeah, exactly. And making sure, and I'll steal little Anthony's, part is also making sure that design works the way that they are. In certain areas, in the United States, we're gifted that we have three very, very strong carriers, AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon. That if you're on any three of those networks, you're generally going to be pretty happy. But when you start dealing with, countries potentially in South America, Africa, you start dealing with certain rates are very, very high. Some of them are very low. Sometimes the network performance in a specific area is not conducive to certain networks. And we have the ability, like I said, we have the core infrastructure where we start looking at it and be able to say, hey, based on your geographical location, these are going to be areas that maybe we should be pushing these carriers or this MZ profile to be able to support, carrier A or carrier B. And then Anthony is able to go in and say, hey, based on, our internal steerage, we're going to push this over here and we're going to design it so it makes sure to connect to this. And that way we have an ultimate happy customer who may or may not know everything about IoT. They may not have the 20 years of experience that both Anthony and I have. They're just looking to say, hey, I just need to deploy this stuff. I need it to work, and I need my end customer not to call me up saying that they have an issue. And that's kind of what our value prop is both localized in the United States, but also global throughout the entire world. I think we cover, something about 95% of all the countries.
Amazing. So thank you for that. William, I want to ask you, now that we understand that basically you got this solution that is, works fabulous in the throughout the US, and you even have the opportunity to deploy it internationally. But take us to a real customer site. You know, what the setup look like, what may go wrong or do go wrong, and and that you guys with your device can help overcome.
Yeah, thank you. Well, let me deal first with the outside the U.S. Deployment. For us, it's always about homologation. It's a fancy word of the approval process. I'm bringing a product within a country like or an area like Latin America. That's why we partner up with experts within those regions, is to facilitate the homologation with our product. But the core problem that anyone deals with cellular is very similar across. It doesn't matter where we deploy. The problem is always the same. It's most of it's SCADA because it is IoT. Most of it's because you're sending protocols like Modbus or MQTT, or they're connected to PLCs or those type of devices. We have to deal with um, not only troubleshooting radio networks, but how they're connected into and then forwarded outbound. With our product, with the new Zentry, we have the ability with permissions from our customers to get directly into those devices and help them troubleshoot in real time. We can do that, and we don't have to worry about. We've had customers that have called us up and said, "Hey, we had an IP address at one time, but for some reason our MVNO took the IP address, which means their entire SCADA system is down now." And you can't. It's not as if we can go back and switch them over to another carrier and use the exact same IP address. The entire port forwarding table, everything changes at that point. We've eliminated all those problems with Zentry through the ability to create transparent DNSs on the secure side of things.
And
Yeah.
William, can you just give us a small explanation for non-technical folks on the call? What exactly or why static public IP is actually a security issue and not a security feature?
Yeah, because exactly what you just said, they're public. And typically, some of those are published, like some of the carriers will publish their IP address. All it takes is the bot to go in there and ping those IP addresses, and they know that it's a valid IP address. Then they can simply go to it, and if a device is connected to it, they can type in admin, and then they're in the products. And that's happened several times with our customers, and they have been hacked into, and they've had a lot of damage. But a static IP addresses, even if they're behind a private APN, are not dark. Our zero trust product is completely dark. You can't see the IP addresses.
So if I can't see the IP addresses, how do I communicate with it?
Well, you get it. We do it through tokens. You get permission. It's permissions based. The only way into those devices is if you create a socket between devices.
Okay. And do you see those devices, or let's say before they become your customers and they use the public IP in order to be able to communicate with this device? You mentioned that they do get hacked. Now, how do they find out about it?
Um, well, I can give you an example. At one time, we were dealing with a customer that sells solar, and we advised them not to use public IP addresses, to use the secure platform, and they did go get public IP addresses on top of the secure, but they were there. It's only as good as the weakest link, and that static IP address was the weakest link. And a bot was able to go ping those addresses and then totally delete files within the Linux environment, and that caused every single one of the devices, hundreds of devices, to be compromised.
Yeah, Ernest, you wanted to head here.
Yeah, and I'm gonna kind of jump in here from a carrier perspective, or what I had in the carrier world. Most of the times carriers don't even allow I2 Gold or public IPs just because of the security risks. Um, Understanding customers are wanting. Uh, the biggest problem and the way I would, push this out is usually the customer finds out when they get their bill the next month and they have, gigs of overage on certain devices that should be pinging 1 megabyte, 2 megabytes a month, and all of a sudden they're doing gigs of traffic because they got a bot attack on it. That's the security risk, and once again, most carriers don't even support this. Going into William's point and kind of giving that value, and I've worked on real life use cases where we're working on, a customer's wanting public IPs. We, are not able to provide those as their security risks. We then go in and say, hey, we can provide private static IPs, and they should be able to do that. Most of the times, though, with complex enterprises, larger MVNOs, or oil and gas governmental accounts, any of those, trying to go in and install a VPN is unlikely through their very very strong security department, and that's where Williams' product really shines in being able to have that infrastructure, being able to ping the devices, log into the devices without having to have a VPN built or a public static IP.
Yeah, so basically, it sounds like it's between lack of knowledge or I don't know, knowledge from the history of how network use was look like that people are coming and asking for specific things, right? Like for the
Yeah.
static IP. So it's actually
Well,
It's
bring me to
it's
my next question to Anthony is when a customer comes to you, right? What exactly does he know? What exactly does he's asking? Because you said that you are working with him to design his network or a solution for him.
yeah.
So what is the gap here?
So, we take it from another standpoint, and it's a good question, and also I might add to what they were saying before. So, when a customer comes to us, they're trying to solve a problem. They have an issue, whether it's, they need global coverage, they don't have coverage in a specific area because their partner is very limited, whatever it might be, they have an issue. So when we get involved with the customer, we look at what problem are you trying to solve? And forget about how they solved the problems or they solved these challenges in the past, whether it's, we went static IP addresses because we weren't able to do port forwarding, whatever it might be. We look at the issue holistically. So what are you trying to solve? What problems are you having? So that way we can help define a strategy that tackles those issues and brings the technology to date. For example, as Ernest mentioned and as Bill mentioned, William rather, sorry, that uh, static IP addresses it's antiquated because most of the IP addresses that you're looking at there is IP4, and I might get a little too technical here, right? Which uh, it might have been great years ago, but now when you're adding millions upon millions of devices to the networks on a yearly or regular basis, you're going to run out of IP addresses. So you have to go to a private static pool. And then even then, you have limitations. You have to do port forwarding where there's a lot of challenges with different types of communications, as William mentioned, MQTT. MQTT is UDP-based protocol, right? Like it doesn't have that fix that TCP/IP has. So there's all these different challenges. So when we interface with a customer, we're looking at what are they trying to solve? And how can we use the technology that's current and available to us now in order to help do that? So that's the way we take that approach. What are you trying to solve, and how can we help do that as quickly as possible?
Yeah. Uh, you raised the interesting point regarding the IPv4, which is the standard IP addressing that we know today, and we are looking now ahead into the future into IPv6, and I wonder, does it will change anything? the static fixed IP doesn't matter if it's this version or the other one?
No, you still have the same challenges. Public IP address, as these guys have mentioned, is a public IP address. In my youth, right, I dabbled in, technology and IPs and hacking and the phone hacking, which was called phreaking, and it was not malicious in any way. It was just exploratory, right? What does this do? What is this out there doing? I want to know, right? And public IP addresses just open the door for that. Like, why is this here? What is it doing? And when it's a public IP address, you have no control other than to deny access, right? The attempt in accessing it, as Ernest mentioned, uses data. I mean, you're attacking that IP address and trying to access it. So that uses data, and that's just going to increase your bills. When you're doing things like FreeWave has implemented with entry, it really extremely reduces that type of capability for someone to try and access the network.
And how all of that is being affected, whether the customer has, I don't know, 100 devices or 100,000 devices, how it affects all of it.
From the IPs, how do you mean? I'm sorry.
From designing the network, from security point of view, from the overall solution.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's one device or 100,000 devices. You want a secure product. I mean,
Exactly. And you got to remember, under scale, everything breaks. If you have, 100 devices and you're affected by, 1% of issues, you can kind of relegate and say, hey, I can deal with 1%. But once you get to 100,000, 1 million devices, 2 million devices, and you still have that same 1%, you're starting to deal with a really big problem and it becomes unscalable, unattainable, and ultimately will break under stress. So you want to make sure, as Anthony was saying, get this solution in quick, early, build it the correct way. So that way you don't have a 1%, 2%, 3% breakage. Once you get to scale, everything breaks.
Thank you. William, I wanted to ask you as well, as Anthony mentions that there's a lot of times there is gaps in the knowledge of your customers. Do you see it as well when you meet your customers?
I do, and I think it's worth noting this. Customers don't care. They go through the learning curve because they keep bumping into walls. Meaning, the low-hanging fruit for customers is they want to deploy a product and they want it to just work. They don't want to have to go and understand what an MVNO is or a data SIM or our customers have one need is to get data from end to end. It's typically from an oil pad or utility space or water treatment facility and sometimes a government application to the other end. That's what they care about. It just happens the way that the industry kind of works is that they're kind of forced down that path. So we become experts on trying to solve that problem. So the like I said earlier, the customer just they don't care about how we get from end to end. They just want it to work.
All right, thank you. So,
William, if,
Dan as
if I can
well.
actually ask a question to William, I mean, your end customers, I'm assuming they're folks who are working on the oil rig, or they're someone who has a camera in their vehicle. They're not even, the end designer of the product. They're just users of the product. They don't actually know anything. I'm assuming that you're getting the same exact, kind of feedback. They just need it to be working, because they're not, ultimately support for these type of products.
You're 100% on target there, Ernest. And to be honest with you, by the time they call us, they're frustrated with something. And then we're starting to troubleshoot because there's so many pieces and parts involved from the PLC all the way through our radio telemetry, all the way through the cellular device. We've got to troubleshoot. We've got to have knowledge and troubleshoot the entire. But you're right; these guys are the ones that are actually working on site. that they don't understand. They don't even understand sometimes the port forwarding piece of it. It's usually their IT department that manipulates that kind of stuff.
Right. Thank you. Ernest, I want to take it the next one to you. So we understand, from the all food chain here, the people that William is meeting and the people and the customers that Anthony is meeting. Now, the customers that you actually meet. I imagine that customers don't usually think about the cellular core. They know about SIM cards, they know about carriers or MNO, but what are they missing, and when does it start costing them?
Well, from a cellular core perspective, you got to kind of look at it and say, and when you're dealing with, MVNOs and very, very large enterprises, being connected is one thing, but being able to figure out why a device is currently online, offline, who it's connected to, where it's connected to, why it's connected to, and being able to go through the core network design, which most carriers may not even have that ability to get down to that granular level. It helps you go in and say, do I actually have a design flaw within my device? Do I have some issues that are going to break under scale before getting into scale and being able to support that? So, where we want to do with our core network design is provide us to MVNOs such as Anthony and Velocity, where they can go in and say, hey, Mr. Customer, this is what we're seeing on the device. This is, our service is helping you design to make sure that this is not working and now, or working correctly. And now the end customer has a working solution designed based on some of the core, fundamentals. And being able to gather that data for large enterprise MVNO is a key differentiator. Why, anybody can, put a SIM in it and get it working. But getting that real rudimentary root cause analysis is so much bigger and more valuable in the long term for our end customers.
Okay, thank you for that. So, but is there a difference for the customer whether the service is local or roaming? We discussed in the beginning of the panel that the solution works both domestic and international. So, is it make any difference for me as a customer if it's a roaming or local?
Definitely. So when you're dealing with, 1 megabyte asset trackers or a basic tag, probably not going to have as much effect as there's not a lot of data being transferred. It's usually just 1 or 2, bytes per month. But when we're dealing with video cameras, security cameras, driver side cameras, or systems that need to be constantly pinged back and forth, you start dealing with latency issues. And if your, local packet gateway or your gateway is, over in Europe or in the United States as you have a European deployment or vice versa, latency becomes a killer where your data is not coming through. From video perspective, your camera feeds now become pixelated, or two, it's just so slow to be able to get that information that you're not in real time. So having local packet gateways or having a localization is definitely a need for many use cases that both Anthony and William come into on their day to day. Because when we're dealing with oil and gas, we need to have, that information right away. We can't wait an hour or wait a couple of minutes to figure out if there's a problem. We need to know if there's a problem and shut some things down very, very quickly. William, Anthony, I would obviously open that question up to you guys as well. You guys are the senior folks, so you've seen stuff break under scale and see when non-global or global deployments don't have that localization.
Yeah, so one of the topics, right, or one of the key points to what you said, yeah, latency, it may not matter as much for latency when you're looking at data from endpoint to endpoint, right? When you're talking about 1 meg, 2 megs, 10 megs. in a month or something like that. However, it does matter when you're looking at battery-powered devices, right? So we have a lot of customers out there that have they might use a small amount of data, and these are on battery-powered devices that need to be out there 5, 10 years, right? The issue is when you have high latency, it takes longer to communicate, which means that the module is on longer, which means that it's using more power. And lower latency communication helps reduce the amount of time that the device has to stay online. So from a battery savings, it's better to have lower latency. Even though you're not using that much data, lower latency makes a huge difference.
And
William?
I would say that to Anthony's point, again, you're right on track. I would say most of our equipment is in a cabinet somewhere remote. That's the nature of cellular. I mean, that's why it's used um, uh, in that fashion. So we deal with those problems too. We deal with days of autonomy or hours of autonomy when it comes to those devices or those systems.
Right, thank you. So we are getting closer to the end, and I want to keep some times for the question from the audience that is coming in. So I want to give each of you like 2 minutes for closing. Ernest, I can start with you.
Great. Yeah. So, like I was saying, there are multiple, kind of portions, and I think Anthony has touched this on well. It's really about understanding what the end customer is trying to do, how they're trying to deploy, what they're trying to deploy, how they're trying to look at the data, and ultimately give as many tools to the end customer so that they can be able to manage, troubleshoot the next layer that comes in, whether it be an MVNO directly supporting their customers as Anthony and Williams kind of perspective, or we're dealing with a very, very large complex enterprise where they need these type of tools to be able to get within the networking level, so that way they can start troubleshooting and then be able to expand and scale their devices as they go through the market. So with that,
Thank
I'll
you.
pass it over.
Anthony?
Yeah, no, this is, these are great topics, and discussions like this, we're talking about it post and post development, but these are the types of discussions that you have to have also as you're thinking the process out of what you want to deploy. This is where we come in and we kind of ask those questions. We work with our partners like FreeWave and Flolive to make sure that on both sides, the network side and the device side, are the integrations done properly, and all these questions are thought out in advance, so that way the deployment strategy is unified. We're working with you. We're testing whatever you need to test in order to make sure that you have a good experience with your connectivity and product.
Thank you. William, any words to add?
Yeah, our customers demand rugged, reliable connectivity, and partnering up with companies like Velocity um, uh, gives us that, right? Flolive. We have the ability to reliably connect their assets to the real world, and our real world is like SCADA, so that's important to us.
Yeah, thank you, William. So I want to take the few last minutes that we have left for this call to answer some of the audience question. I have some questions coming in. I'm trying to, group them, and some of the I know we discuss it. It's for William. I know we discuss it, but I see that this the question come up multiple times. So people are asking or trying to make sure they understand that with your platform, they're asking with your platform, do I need static IP address? What about port forwarding? And what about port forwarding?
You do not need a static IP address. The system's designed so you don't use a static IP address, and then you do not have to go port forward anything. The platform creates within the bubble of our zero trust, it creates IP type addresses that it uses. They're DNSs, but they're IPs that the SCADA system uses within that bubble. So you don't need any of the port forwarding, and you don't need any of the static IP addresses.
Thank you. Another question to you is if you can explain the difference between your solution to a VPN. VPN eventually create also some kind of a bubble.
Um, okay, the difference between our solution and a VPN is we're completely dark. A VPN is not completely dark. You can't even see our network. It's hidden. It's dark. There's another difference too, is that a VPN doesn't allow you, that I know of, to microsegment a device. In other words, I can get permissions for someone within one device to gain access to the data, or the UI, or some other port that's available on that device, where you don't necessarily. I can do that through zero trust. I can do that through Zentry. You can't do that through a VPN connection.
This is
It's all or nothing.
an interesting point. So you're saying in a VPN, once I'm in, I have access to all of the devices, but with your platform, you can decide which devices is available to different users, right?
I can isolate by user, I can isolate by device, we've had customers in the oil and gas field that wants to share their data, but they don't want anyone in their UI that can accidentally configure something, and we can completely isolate those.
All right, cool. So I got another question here. I think I will give it to Anthony. What is the advantage of using a global SIM?
Um, uh, there's a lot of ROI that people don't realize when you're using a global SIM and infrastructure. For deployments, you don't have to worry about doing site surveys, understanding what's there, so it eliminates that whole cost of sending someone out to verify it, to verify the location. And regardless, when you do a site survey, things change over time, right? So what you might have great connectivity with one carrier in the single location, and then, 2 years later, something happens, lightning strikes the tower, right? What do you do then, right? Then your whole site survey is no longer the same, or the technology changes. Having, a global SIM and the ability to update IMSIs, to update configurations over the air via the platform. Yeah, it just gives you that ability to know that your product is designed to be out there for several years, and it's going to be out there for several years working.
Thank you, Anthony. So I got my last question here, and I will point it to Ernest. During the call, the discussion was around talk about connectivity. We talked about SIM cards, but people here is asking what about an eSIM or SGP32 and how, if at all, it's affect what we have discussed here. You're on mute, Ernest.
Sorry about that. Really, it doesn't affect your end deployment. Where it really affects when you start talking about 32 is just how you want to manage your own network and who owns the infrastructure. So, in many cases, if it's, hey, I just need a hard SIM, or I need access to a network, you can be able to provide that through Anthony and Velocity, or potentially through us. But when you talk about 32, it's wow, I have multiple networks. I may have my own contracts with certain carriers for whatever reason they may be. And I want to have an additional layer where I can be able to manage turn on, turn off networks, find different access points where it's more of your infrastructure and how you want to manage and how you want to get a little bit more granular. And that's something that, like I said, both Anthony and I can be able to support you guys as you go through your journey and understand some of the pitfalls. Many a times these customers will come to us and say, "Hey, we're going to go to 32, but we have 1,000 SIMs ready to go." And you're going in saying, "Ooh, you're going to own all that infrastructure, manage all this stuff, pay a lot of upfront cost to be able to do that." That may not be the right thing versus a very, very reputable company who's been doing it forever, who has hundreds of thousands of SIMs with both a local and a global network. Then you go in and say, yeah, it makes sense for you to actually build that infrastructure and let's build it the correct way. Because, like I said, most of the customers don't understand. They need an EIM provider, they need an orchestration level. They need to be able to manage how the device is turning on and turning off. And then two, which is also a threat, a potential pitfall as you're moving from carrier to carrier. That also is a potential gap because you're taking, let's say, 100,000 devices in Europe and you're deciding to move it from one network provider to another, and you go through 32. What happens if that network swap fails? You may have just taken off 100,000, units in line. So we want to make sure that your system is developed. And I know Anthony and I have both seen it live. We want to make sure that it's done correctly. You go through the entire due diligence of going towards 32 and ultimately have a successful deployment.
All right, thank you, Ernest. So we are basically reaching the end of our call today. I wanted to thank everyone that participate and joined this amazing conversation, and I want to thank you guys for bringing a wonderful conversation and very insightful. So thank you all, and have a good day.
Thank you.
The recording will be available, of course, later on.
Thank you all.
Bye.